This is the Comics Alternative with the March on Location episode at Collected Comics and Games in Plano, Texas. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Comics Alternative on Location, and we are here at Collected Comics and Games in Plano, Texas. They are located at 3100 Independence Parkway. For those of you who know the area, that's on the corner of Independence and Parker. But, you know, even for those who don't know the area, it's still on the corner of Independence and Parker in Plano, Texas, because whether you know it or not doesn't mean that it's not at the same location. So there you go. And joining me on this month's On Location episode is the store manager, Sabrina, and then other employees of the shop, Freddie and Stephanie. Right. So right now we are customer free. So those bothersome individuals haven't shown up yet, and they may not, but that's fine. But we do have the crew here from Collected who are here to talk. Not the entire time, because Freddie, I think that you had mentioned that you're going to be heading out in a few minutes.
Yes, I'll be off on my own podcast, the Nerd Ninja Horror Show. Starts at 8:30 tonight.
Okay, well, tell us a little bit. Think of this as free advertisement. I mean, free. I mean, what do we charge, right? So, tell us a little bit about the podcast.
So basically, every Wednesday night, my co-hosts and I get together. My co-host is Ashley Baxter. You might know her as Ash Von Horror. She goes to a lot of conventions, does cosplay. We're both huge horror geeks, as I've talked about on this podcast many a time. And so basically, we get together, talk about the news in horror. This week, tonight, we'll specifically be talking about the career of Brad Dourif as he celebrated his birthday last week. We also lost legendary actor Larry Drake, who was in the Darkman franchise as its antagonist. So we'll be talking about that, as well as some new movies coming out, such as Holidays, which is a horror anthology about every single holiday.
Okay, and this you were telling me before we started to record, this is on,
Twitch.
Twitch TV.
Mm-hmm.
Twitch.tv.
Yes, sir, and it's on the Nerd Ninja channel.
Okay, so if they go there to the website and they search for the Nerd Ninja, they can find your show.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And, and you're going to be doing this later this evening?
Yes, at 8:30.
Okay.
Every 8:30 every Wednesday. So.
Okay, so listeners, check this out and then respond back and let us know what you think of Freddie's show.
For comic book viewers, we did talk about Joe Hill's Tales from the Dark Side adaptation comic coming out soon, a couple episodes back, which all our episodes go on YouTube the day after, too. So.
Okay. Well, I'll definitely have to check that out then. And, since we're, I guess, advertising things, your show, we don't usually do sponsor bits on our On Location episodes. But let me ask you, you guys have not started to sell tea and coffee, have you?
No.
Okay, so I think it's safe. Let me just put in a plug for one of our relatively new sponsors on the Comics Alternative, and that is Just Coffee Co-op. You guys like coffee?
That's them. Not me.
I like coffee and tea.
I like tea.
Okay, well, if you want great coffee, tea, and chocolates, then you definitely should check out Just Coffee Co-op. Their website is justcoffee.coop. That's justcoffee, one word, .coop. In fact, all of their coffee is organic, 100% fair trade, and this is a cooperative. So not only is it great coffee in a variety of different flavors and types and roasts, but you can feel good about drinking it because you're doing something great for the growers and for the environment. So definitely check out justcoffee.coop. And in fact, if you get your coffee there, make sure that you use our coupon code COMICS on checkout, and that gives you 10% off of your order. And shipping is always free. There is no minimum order. So that's justcoffee.coop. You guys ought to check it out. Even you, Freddie, if you don't like coffee, still get it for someone else.
I do like a mean cup of Earl Grey.
Yeah, there you go.
And they have tea there as well. So again, check out justcoffee.coop. That would help the Comics Alternative. And also, justcoffee.coop would make a sale. So there is a plug. There you go. But let's get down to the matter at hand, and that's talking about comics-related matters. Now, back in January, which is the last time I was here, we were just getting back in the groove of the on-location shows. But then I had to leave town at the tail end of January, was gone all February, so we couldn't do a show then. But we're back now. So we're picking up where we left off. And we thought that we would just make this an open topic episode. People can talk about whatever they're interested in, comics related, pop culture related, and we'll just see what transpires. What you've been reading, what you've been watching, what you've been doing, including knitting. And in fact, I should mention, as we're sitting here, Sabrina is knitting something.
It's a hat.
It's a hat.
Feel it.
I was gonna ask what that is.
It's delightful wool. It's super fine.
Is it called Delightful Wool?
It should be.
It does feel nice.
It's from Australia, though.
In fact, I want to rub it.
That's why I bought it.
The greatest things
I
come
found
from
a pattern
Australia.
specifically for this. I'm surprised that they are able to have sheep in Australia. It's a deadly place. Deadly land.
You should knit a tapestry with Crocodile Dundee on it.
Yeah.
I'm sad.
Call those knitting needles? These are knitting
There
needles.
you go.
There you. Yeah, I'm glad you made that reference because I was about to. One of our regular participants who usually is here every month that we're doing a recording is Matt Cuzio. He couldn't be here tonight, or at least I don't think he'll show, but he did send a list of some of the things that he's been reading lately and wanted us to, I guess, share it with the people here. So I want to mention some of the things that Matt is reading, and then maybe you guys can respond or react to this to see if you're reading it as well. He said one title that he's very excited about is Mirror, written by Emma Rios with art by Hui Lim. I think we have how many issues of that out now?
It's 2. It just came out this week is the second issue.
2? Okay. And he mentioned that he felt somewhat similar to the way I felt with Mirror issue number 1. We reviewed that about a month ago, and I thought it was good enough, but I felt a little lost in it, and I thought maybe a little more exposition would have helped. I had not read as many comics in the 8-House universe, and so that's, I think, one of the reasons why I may have felt a little lost. Other things he's reading is IDW's Deviation one-shot series.
Oh yeah, actually we've been having a really hard time keeping those in stock because we'd have like people subscribe to it and then they'd only send us one. So there was a Ghostbusters one, which is what if they couldn't defeat the Marshmallow Gozer, and then there was one which is what if Cobra took over the world in the G.I. Joe universe, but then Cobra Commander got bored and was like, we need the G.I. Joes back. Mm-hmm. And so it's basically like these little fun things that are like slight changes in history in a bunch of these IDW franchises.
It's just like DC's Elseworld.
Yeah, the Ninja Turtle ones is probably going to be...
Or Marvel's What If, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Especially the Ninja Turtle one, because it's going to be what if Splinter lost the turtles to Shredder and they became like foot ninjas. And so it's like all these different Elseworlds. It's really cool. Mm-hmm.
And I have not read anything in that series.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to find. I had someone else actually gave him the Transformers one because he was just looking everywhere, and I was like, here, I'll just sell you mine from I hadn't bought it yet.
So you say it's hard to find because you're just not getting as many of them in the shop?
We didn't get that many, and I think just it wasn't previewed very well because it was just in the previews, like in the middle of it. It wasn't like on the cover.
It wasn't like Spotlight.
Yeah, or in Spotlight or anything. It was just in there.
Because I don't remember seeing that in previews at all, and I go through the previews
catalog.
catalog.
I think the only
every
reason
month.
I found out about it was Cuzio, I think, was looking for them. Mm-hmm.
Well, and he says that he really likes them. Something else he said that he's been reading is Chris Lewis's Karma Police. And I haven't read that, but I think about a month ago I got an email. It may have been directly from Chris Lewis, alerting us about Karma Police and wanted to know, if you're interested in reviewing it on the podcast, let me know. I'd appreciate the attention. We haven't done anything with it yet, but when Matt said that this is a title that he has been enjoying, it rang a bell. I was like, okay. So I may have to check that out. He says he's also excited about Patsy Walker, a.k.a. Hellcat.
Oh yeah, that one's been really fun. I've been reading that one. It's just like, it basically deals with like all the weird stuff in the superhero universe. Like, she's been dead at one point, and because of that, like, she can't get a job because everyone's like, why do you have this long period of unemployment? And so she's like getting a job at like all these different locations, and then she gets really tired of it, so she basically starts her own like Heroes for Hire agency. And then meanwhile, she started out as a romance comics character, and they're bringing that roots back to it because basically they made those comics real in her universe, and so basically her rival got the rights to them and is republishing them without her permission. And it's like comics that her mom wrote about her life as a teenager, and it's just really weird and fun.
And I think that that's an interesting way that Marvel is retrofitting the original Patsy Walker romance comics into their current universe.
Yeah, it's actually kind of funny because I think 2 years ago someone mentioned that her romance comics, Hetty, I think is her name, her rival in that would be a really great like rival character for a Hellcat book, and now that's what they're actually doing. So it's really fun seeing like a fan like bring that and Marvel actually doing it.
You know, that reminds me of something that I think DC is going to do with Sugar and Spike.
Yeah.
Have you heard about that?
Yeah, that's actually out right now.
Oh, so it is already
yes,
out.
Yes,
Okay.
it's under a comic title called Legends of Tomorrow, but it doesn't have anything to do with the TV show. It's basically they announced a bunch of comics, and the ones that kind of didn't like inspire a lot of like a really big fan reaction, they kind of made into an anthology book. So you have Sugar and Spike, The Metal Men, Metamorpho, and Firestorm.
So it's going to be like what I guess most recently DC Universe Presents.
Yes, exactly.
From a few years ago, started to do, but then stopped doing, and maybe what Showcase did back in the day. Yeah. So that's interesting. Although I don't know, a part of me just wants them to leave Sugar and Spike alone, let it rest. You know that. You know, why try to gerrymander it into what DC is currently doing? It's kind of like Patsy Walker, but you know, if it sells, and apparently the Patsy Walker,
Walker one apparently has been doing really well.
Yeah. So I mean, who am I to tell the big two what to do? Another title that Matt mentioned, and I hadn't heard of this title. I looked it up right before I came down here. Is by Sarah Anderson. It's called "Adulthood is a Myth," Sarah's Scribbles collection. Is anyone familiar with that?
No.
I have not.
No, that must be something that was previewed because I didn't see that.
I think it's something for younger readers, and I can't remember the publisher. I believe it's a major trade publisher. So it's not a comic specific
Gotcha.
publisher. Because those are some of the titles that he wanted us to mention on the show, and so apparently some of you guys are familiar with some of these titles. Well, the whole Patsy Walker thing reminds me of, well, you know, the Jessica Jones series on Netflix.
Yeah.
And then Daredevil, the second season, just...
Past weekend.
Yeah, this past weekend. Has anyone started to watch that yet?
That
I
would be
watched
Freddy.
the whole thing on Sunday, and I have a review up on nerdninja.com for it.
There you go, another plug for Nerd Ninja.
Yeah.
Okay, so you watched the entire second season.
I watched the entire thing in one day, yes.
Wow. So
Did you
what are your
watch?
thoughts?
I do not think it has the effect that this first season has. It's really good. I think the main problem is it doesn't have an overarching antagonist like the first season does.
Right.
And the antagonist kind of changes hands between several different characters. So you have really good quote-unquote antagonists, but then it'll switch over to another character, and that character doesn't care it as much. And by the end of it, the Hand kind of becomes the antagonist, and it's not really seen throughout the series. So after a while, you just kind of get Elektra and Daredevil beating on random guys. And it's just not as good as the beginning, which is Punisher, basically. But this is the best version of the Punisher I've ever seen in my life.
Okay. See, I wasn't even sure about the Punisher being a part of that, but...
I'm a huge Spider-Man fan, so like knowing that he came out of Spider-Man, and not to my knowledge in the comics I've read, he hasn't crossed with Daredevil that often, but it makes sense cinematically.
And you know, now this really makes sense to me because yesterday we got our latest box from Loot Crate. And the theme, our family does a couple of boxes. We do, Nerd Block and then Loot
Yeah.
Crate. And I guess this month the theme in Loot Crate is versus, somebody versus somebody else.
Yeah.
And one of the things in this month's Loot Crate was a toque, a cap, that if you turn it in one side, it's red Daredevil with the Daredevil symbol, the DD. And then if you turn it inside out, it's black with Punisher.
Okay.
So, given the
Yeah.
Netflix series, that makes sense.
Indeed.
Yeah.
I like season 2 a lot. It has a lot to offer, but the ending is just not as satisfying to me as the first season was.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I got into, I think the first 2 or 3 episodes of Daredevil, I thought, of the first season, I thought they were good,
Yeah.
but they didn't grab me. I thought that a lot of the violence was gratuitous, and I think that's the reason why I wasn't overly enthusiastic about it. I have no problem with violence. I mean, I'm not squeamish or anything, but I got the sense that it was... Is padding the right word? Maybe that there was too much time spent on the choreography of the fighting, which can be beautiful, which can be fine. It's just that's not where I'm at in terms of taste. But after the 3rd or 4th episode, I got used to what they were doing, and I liked it. I thought that it ended really well.
And that's the thing too, is like when I was in an art school, and they always taught me, I had a combat class, they always taught me that the fighting techniques should tell the story themselves. And so with Daredevil, there was a really high stylized fighting technique that kind of influenced where Daredevil came from. You got the story where he was trained by Stick through his fighting skills before you actually got the story itself. And so that's one of the things I liked about it. Was I'm also a huge geek for camera techniques and the way those things are shot. I'm a sucker for single shot sequences that can create that atmosphere and that kind of tensity as you're watching it. And so there's a lot of sequences in that first season that just sell it so well for me. And the tone of it is perfect for what they're trying to do. So I was immediately into it. That being said, when it switched over to the second season, they had the same stuff, but Elektra was my problem, and she was not bad. She didn't get her story told in her combat training as well as Daredevil did, I thought. But I think it's also because she didn't get a whole season dedicated to her. I think that was kind of a problem. It was too many characters to balance, in a sense. That was just me, though. I mean, I liked it all.
Okay, but just not as well as the first.
No.
So, I know before we started to record, you guys were telling me about some of the things you have been reading, Sabrina.
Yes. I had the opportunity.
You read?
I read sometimes. But we've gotten a few previews of things that are coming out in April and one in May. Let's see. I made a little list here. The Fix, the new book by Image, coming out on the 6th of April.
Oh, that's right.
That was good. You have...
So you say you got a preview?
I
of
got
it?
to read the full first issue, which was really nice. But good art, good story. I definitely think it's worth picking up. It's about cops. I don't want to give too much away.
I remember. What was it? I guess last month, back February, it was in previews.
Yes, definitely worth picking up. Not all cops are good guys, is what you get from it, I guess, to be essentially.
And is it like a cop
Story.
buddy series?
Yeah, it's 2 guys. One of them, you kind of go into the past of one of the boys, well, one of the men as a boy, and he would watch, like, cops and robbers shows, and he always sided with the robbers, but he always hated, you're so bad at this, you're getting caught. So then he decided that cops is the next best because they get away with everything. It's his, ideas, so...
Well, who's the creative team on that? I can't remember.
Oh, God, I didn't write that down. Why are you throwing hard questions at me?
Some people with pencils.
Pencils? Yeah, Pencil Man. I can Google that real quick.
Well, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Oh, God, so on the spot. Anyway, everybody else has the internet, so they can look it up.
Yeah, they're gonna look.
But yeah, definitely a good one. Let's see, another one that I had a chance to read by Oni. Is that how you pronounce
Oni
it?
Press, yeah.
Yes, it's called Heartthrob. Set in the 70s, a woman gets a heart transplant.
Oh, that's the one with Robert Wilson IV as the artist on that.
I'm gonna go with yes, because I don't really know, but you seem to know, so...
I believe that's his title. In fact, he's a local guy. He's in the
Is
DFW
he?
area, yeah. So I guess this is not his local shop, but I all the time see him at events like the Dallas Con and others around here, just like in Austin
Yeah.
or San Antonio or wherever. So, I've also seen him other places. But yeah, he is the artist of that series, if I'm not mistaken. Really good, and in fact he did a variant cover, or maybe he did the cover, not a variant of an issue of Bitch Planet last year, and that got him quite a bit of attention. In fact, when I was at Heroes Con, he was at a table right around the corner from Kelly Sue DeConnick and Matt Fraction,
Oh, nice.
which had tons of traffic, as you might imagine.
Yeah.
And he was there, and he got a lot of the residual traffic from them. So even
did
if
a
people,
cover.
yeah, and so even if people didn't know that he did something with Bitch Planet, he benefited from their popularity, which is
Right.
cool.
Definitely. Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was good. I'm always afraid of giving away too much. But, she was a sickly child, the character, and then she gets her heart transplant when she's an adult. And she has a new lease on life. Life gets crazy, so...
Well, there's no spoiler in there. It doesn't
No.
sound like it. I mean, you're giving the premise, and that's
Yeah.
what you do. Something
Oh,
like in
yeah.
a solicit.
Yes, yeah, but I definitely think it's worth picking up. But that'll be out on the 13th of April.
Okay.
Yes, and another one, Black Mask, is the publisher. They've done some weird stuff, but they've done some really good stuff too. But this title is called Four Kids Walking to a Bank, and it's literally like kids rolling D&D dice, playing games, and
Well, it sounds like the setup of a joke.
yeah, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But the first issue it's got a really cool style about it. It kind of feels like the Goonies, but if Tarantino did it.
That's a very good description of it because we got the first issue mailed to us to read, and Sabrina asked us all to read, and I really enjoyed it, but that's probably the best way to describe it.
So, Twisted Goonies.
Yeah, because they're all like 12 years old. They're still kids, and they get into
Sadistic
mischief.
kids.
But I'm really looking forward to that because I've picked up We Can Never Go Home, which was also really good, and Ghost Raiders, set in space.
Oh, Ghost Riders.
Ghost Riders. No,
Or is it Space
Space Raiders.
Space Raiders? Yeah, that's it.
I don't know. There's spaceships.
That
a
artwork
skull.
is amazing.
It's like the artist dropped acid and then did art.
It's very old school Steve Ditko, Doctor Strange kind of stuff.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Black Mask is definitely, I think, a publisher to keep an eye on.
I've heard a couple of other people say that as well, and some other comics podcasts that I listen to have mentioned Black Mask titles. And the one in particular they mentioned was, what was it? You Can Never Go Home?
Something
We
like
Can
that.
Never Go Home.
We Can Never Go
Yeah.
Home. And so on that recommendation, I read the first couple of issues. I don't know. I wasn't impressed, and it wasn't so much the story that didn't impress me. It was the art, and I cannot remember who the artist
They
is.
do some really weird stuff for their art in a lot of their books.
Well, the thing, and I can't remember specifics because it's been a while, but the thing that got me about the art in We Can Never Go Home is the lack of consistency and perspective. In that there were some frames where the image or the object was different from an earlier frame, or the perspective of individuals within their environment, or one person talking with another. In other words, the mise en scène just seemed off to me, and I thought, I was noticing it over and over again, which was taking me out of the story. And that being the case, I decided not to go past the second issue.
I don't notice things like that because when I'm reading, I usually will just read all the verbiage and then I'll be like, oh wait, I should go look at the pictures.
The pretty picture.
pretty pictures.
It depends on how egregious something like that is.
Yeah.
Even if it's beautiful art. Like, for instance, Oh God, who did Lady Killer? Was it Joel Jones?
Oh yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
who did the art on that, and also co-wrote it with, and I can't remember his name, but I really liked that title. But this is an example of the art inconsistency that I noticed, but it didn't bother me because I thought it was relatively minor. In the first issue, I remember, because we reviewed it on the podcast, there was a scene where the protagonist was at home with her family, and she was wearing pearls in some frames, but in other frames there were no
Oh.
pearls on her neck. And it wasn't as if there was something obstructing where the pearls had been. It was just the pearls weren't there. And so I noticed that, and I thought, okay, well, that's a little inconsistent. But it was just a minor glitch, I thought, and it didn't really take me out of the story. With We Can Never Go Home, I just kept noticing these kind of inconsistencies or lack of perspective or problematic
No continuity.
Yeah, and so I thought, okay, if I'm noticing this much and it's, because I'm thinking to myself, I don't like this. Why are they doing this? I'm not really getting into the story and enjoying it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a couple artists where, like, something about their art just doesn't, like, I'll notice, like, the mistakes like that, and I just can't go on. So I totally understand that. Like, sometimes it's just something, like, no matter how good it is, you just can't get past it.
Well, that was my biggest problem when Joe Eisma left Big Trouble in Little China, was Joe knew how to draw Jack Burton, and this was my biggest problem with everyone talking about The Rock being Jack Burton in the remake. If you think The Rock should play Jack Burton, you don't understand the character of Jack Burton. Jack Burton is this idiot who just bumbles his way through life and ends up saving people on accident. He's kind of buff, but he's not a huge hulking guy. Well, just like when they announced that The Rock was going to play Jack Burton in the Big Trouble in Little China remake, when Joe left the story arc on the art, the guy who picked it up drew him as this huge hulking monster. And I was like, that's not at all this character. You totally missed the point. So, I mean, I've talked to Joe about it, and he said the artist is a really good guy, but I like my Eisma artwork,
Yeah.
It's when they switch it over, I was just like, no, it's not the same for me.
Speaking of local guys, though, Sabrina, do you remember Baker Street Peculiars?
It's on my list. I was actually going to talk about it soon,
Oh,
but
Andy.
before I got crazy, I wanted to talk about the last book that I got to read, the full issue. Z2 Comics is putting out a book called Legend, which I don't think either of you have had a chance to read it yet. But it's, I don't know, I guess kind of a mashup of... It definitely kind of has a bit of a Squarriors vibe. I don't know if anybody's read that one, but it's definitely worth picking up. Humans have either gone extinct or are... is everything alright?
Oh,
Okay. Or they are greatly reduced in number, so dogs and cats have the run of the world.
this is this title from Z2 Legend.
Yes. Yes. So you're mostly focusing on dogs and the beginning. Cats kind of, they're the technological creatures and make the things for the dogs to use. They're kind of a...
This makes me
Not
think of
the-
Star Wars.
Yeah, they
This
don't have the
technological
best
terror you've been
relationship.
instructed.
Yeah, but they're just trying to counteract this thing. Oh, what was it called? The bark knocker? I can't remember. It's
That sounds like an insult. You bark knocker.
right?
for real.
Yeah, there's a stark, scary creature that you can't really tell what it is, and I don't know, I think it looks interesting. I actually don't remember if I actually had a chance to finish it. Now that I'm thinking about it.
Well, the way that you're describing this, I can't help but think of a title that came out with the first issue last month, and that was Kennel Block Blues.
Oh, I've saw
This is
that.
from Boom Studios. Have you read that?
Yeah, I've looked
I've
through
looked
it.
through bits and pieces.
They're not anthropomorphic dogs. They're just like
They're
that's a pug and that's a German Shepherd.
they're
and
dogs
they're-
and then
they're-
cats.
Yeah, and they howl and
Yeah.
But I think it'll be interesting.
I wish they'd taken the Rover Red Charlie route, where they're barking. It's just, I'm a dog, I'm a dog, I'm a dog.
Oh, what was the other one that came out with animals?
Wild's End, or
No. With like running around, cats and dogs, all four paws.
Well, they don't run around on all four paws in Kennel Block Blues.
Well, no, that one's more anthropomorphous sized,
Okay.
whatever the word is.
Anthropomorphic.
Unless, dog. Like, Squirrels is very, like, that's a squirrel. Yeah, he's wearing a scarf, but that's still very much a squirrel.
Like Braveheart squirrel.
Like
Braveheart squirrel.
or a Redwall.
Yeah. But, yeah, those are the 4 comics that I've had a chance to read. I have to say I'm probably the most excited about the Fix. Because it just... good. It was good!
But you were about to say something about Baker Street Peculiars.
Yes,
And
it
our
came
friend Andy
out.
Hirsch is the artist on that.
Yes, nice guy Andy. Go pick up Baker Street Peculiars #1 because Andy's a good guy and it's a really fun book.
Yes, and for those listening, our next review episode, which will go up the last Wednesday of this month, March, we will review issue #1 of Baker Street Peculiars. And you're right. I mean, Andy's a great guy. In fact, what did you call him? Good guy Andy?
He's good guy
Nice
Andy
guy
Hirsch, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we should call him. Nice guy Andy Hirsch.
He'll be here for Free Comic Book Day, right, Sabrina?
I believe so. And we're also planning on doing a signing, though we're still deciding whether or not we should do the signing for the trade when it comes out or the final issue.
For Baker
for Baker Street
Street.
Peculiars. And I'm hoping that we can get him again when his
Varmints?
Varmints comes out.
Well, okay. When might be the pub date of the trade of Baker Street Peculiars?
I actually don't believe it's been solicited yet.
Okay, because if it's around the time of Varmints,
2 and 1.
yep, that'd be great. Although, how many issues in Baker Street Peculiars?
I want to say 4, but it could be 6.
Okay, so it won't be until maybe even early next year.
Yeah, I
And
think-
Varmints is coming out this year.
I think the final issue actually might be coming out in June. I think it's only 4 issues, now that I'm thinking about it.
Well, maybe it will come out in the fall. Who knows?
Yeah, but definitely a good read. Go buy bunches of it so it can go into second printings, and Andy can feel good about his work.
Oh, that's right. And he is really good.
Yes.
He's been on the podcast several times where we've talked to him at various cons and here at Collected. Mm-hmm. So there you go.
Swell guy.
Well, what other local folks might you be bringing in for Free Comic
Hunter
Book Day?
S. Zombie.
He's going to be here again?
He is going to be here again. He's actually, hopefully, he's with a new label right now for a new company for his comic. He's actually finally going to be putting out the 2nd volume of Stillborn. Mm-hmm. So he's working on that and a couple other kids' books, I think.
Kids? Oh, that's funny.
That's
Well, yeah,
an
because his
interesting-
little girl is like 2 or 3 now, and it was funny. I was talking to him the other day, and he just showed her Kiss Meets Scooby-Doo. So according to her, Kiss is the only rock band, and I think I shed a little tear or two. So yeah, he's doing really good. So he should be, unless his new company puts him out at another con that weekend for something, he will be here for that, and he'll have some new artwork out too.
Oh, cool.
That sounds very much like where we're at with Andrew Anderson of Gears and Bones, because there's this chance that he might be going to a convention that weekend as well. But hopefully we'll be getting him.
The Free Comic Day is busy for everybody.
Yeah, it's bonkers.
And one of the things I've really appreciated that you guys do is you seem to bring, okay, not to make comparisons, but I am going to make some comparisons with the folk right down the block, and that's Madness. Yeah, they have a bigger area-wise shop, but on Free Comic Book Day when I go in, they really don't have local creators like you guys do. I mean, every now and again I'll see some, but you bring in more. And because the space is smaller, it seems much more packed and intimate. There it just seems a little more sterile. I mean, I don't want to bash Madness, but...
Yeah.
Hey, I got to meet Judge Reinhold there, so I was pretty happy.
Now, it was last year that he was
was
there,
2
right?
years ago,
Or 2
yeah.
years. Wow, time does fly, yeah.
Right? Yeah, but I saw a little girl come in when Andy was doing a signing, and she just lit up when she got to talk to him. And,
Yeah,
and
everybody loves talking
yeah,
to Andy.
like got an illustration from him, and
Oh yeah, he did a illustration for me. He was doing, I think, a regular show comics that he had there. So
Yeah.
I was just like, I want a picture of Garnet from Adventure Time, and he drew me like a really nice, or not Adventure Time, Steven Universe, and he just drew a really nice one for me. But yeah, he's a really good guy.
He dressed up as Bob's Burgers for Halloween Comic Fest one year.
Yeah, that was
Oh,
a couple
yeah,
years
his
ago. He
girlfriend.
and
That was
his
great.
girlfriend.
His girlfriend, yeah.
In fact, I think we had a picture of that in the show notes.
Because he was
for that
on the
episode.
podcast with you, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was pretty great.
Yeah, so that turned out really well. But yeah, I'm looking forward to Free Comic Book Day.
I'm
but-
already stressing.
Well, yeah, now
She's in charge of this year.
'Cause you're in
I'm
charge.
pretty
It's
happy, actually.
It's the first time I've ever organized it, so yeah, I'm a bit nervous, and I'm really hoping that everybody that we've invited is able to make it.
I'm not doing anything. I'm just going to watch.
Watch me cry in the corner.
Just
You're
want to let you know,
cruel.
Sabrina, we're all counting on you.
Yeah.
Now you'll
no
have us
pressure.
back to do a recording, right?
Oh, please.
That afternoon, I guess, after things
please.
calm down a little bit.
Yeah, and it's not a madhouse, because in the morning it's...
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're bashing
That's
through
when
the door.
everyone's trying to get every single issue of everything.
Right?
Yeah, that was the worst last year. Was I was the only one here apparently for a good hour, and they swarmed the back as I'm trying to man the register and man the back so no one steals comics. I recruited 2 of my friends to watch people because then they started knocking. It was like cattle. They started knocking over displays and.
Oh my god, it's like
At one
Black
point,
Friday.
we had Thomas Branch in here, who's a local artist, and that poor guy got knocked over like 20 times. It was the worst. He was sitting there trying to draw something for somebody, and the people are just like bashing through him, like, please don't hurt our artists.
We want them to come back.
Yeah, exactly.
We like these people. Yeah. Another book. It just came out with the first 4 issues in trade. It's out under Action Lab. It's called Tomboy.
She loves Tomboy.
I enjoy Tomboy. It's a fun book. It's about a teenage girl that... she's
tomboy?
like Hit Boy. Not Hit Boy, Hit Girl.
Hey, girl.
Yeah, or kind of Punisher-esque, young vigilante
It's like very
type.
bright, but also like brutal. It's a good combination. It's just, it works.
Yeah, I enjoy the art and the story is fun. So Tomboy. Not too many things I've read under Action Lab, but I like that one.
I haven't read as many Action Lab titles either. Although, now that I think about it, there are a few. Princeless is a really good
That's
title.
very good.
And Jeremy Whitley is a great guy. And, he's doing that in many ways because of his daughter. He's told us on the podcast a couple of times that one of the reasons why he created that title was to give his daughter something to read that has a strong young female protagonist. And of course, the very title, Princeless, tells you something about that.
Yeah.
There was another title that I read from Action Lab. I haven't read an issue in a while. It's a cross between detective noir and pirate narratives. And I can't remember
Is
the title.
it Raven the Pirate Princess?
No.
Because,
This is Pirate Eye. That's it. How could I forget that? Because it's such a clever title. I've read a couple of issues of Pirate Eye, and it's really good. I mean, you may ask yourself, what kind of a mashup is detective and Private Eye narrative? It works. It's great.
Nice.
And then most recently, I read a single issue, a one-shot. It's from Action Lab. An adaptation of Edgar Allan Poe's The House of Amontillado, or The Cask of Amontillado. And then they're following that up with a mini-series called The House of Montresor. Now, I haven't read The House of Montresor yet. I guess I'm waiting for it to finish up and then read everything together in the trade. But I'm a big fan of Edgar Allan Poe. I do work on comics and adaptation, so this is right up my alley. So I'm curious to see what the creators, and their names escape me right now, are going to be doing with this follow-up or this spin-off of The Cask of Amontillado. So, but that's an Action Lab book, and I really like that. And another one that I've read, and I usually read these holiday issues every Halloween, is Zombie Tramp.
Oh, yeah, everyone's talking about that in Vamp Blade right now.
Yeah.
Everybody's talking about Zombie Tramp?
At this store, we have a lot of Zombie Tramp fans, and Vamp Blade as well. It's another one they're doing.
Is that okay? So that's Action Lab.
They're both
Yeah.
Action Lab.
Okay.
Yeah, they had a Vamp Blade Zombie Tramp crossover.
Okay. Now, to me, Zombie Tramp is an excuse for a little TNA, and that's basically it. Now, I have nothing against that. I am not a prude by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think the story
Needs it.
Well, I mean, there's not much of the story there, I don't think. And I think when you do have the erotic with a really good story, as an example, Howard Chaykin, then it's spot on. But when you have the erotic TNA without much story to to back it up almost as a foundation, then the thing comes crashing down. For me, at least. But if you want a little, I guess TNA in your comics, then that may be something to turn to.
You just gotta have it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need something a little different. Like, I do pick up their Itty Bitty Bunnies and Rainbow Pixie Candy.
You've mentioned that on the podcast before.
I like Freddy. Like, I don't think anybody that I've ever
And that's
talked
Action
to
Lab?
about it. Yeah, I don't think anybody else likes it but me.
It's
Because
weird.
it's very like, I don't know, Ren and Stimpy kind of humor. Just like stupid stuff. Like one of the bunnies ends up getting his head bit off by a monster and ends up finding crap, I showed it to you. What's his name? He's always like a bad Mexican villain. He's got the tattoo. Not Tony.
You mean Danny Trejo?
Yes! He ends up finding like Danny Trejo's
Tony
heads
Trejo.
in this monster's stomach, and he's like, "Oh my god, Danny Trejo, can I have your autograph?" It's just like stupid, silly stuff. It's kind of nice, especially after you read something really intense.
I haven't checked that out.
Yeah, it's not for everybody.
Show.
But what I just read today, Birthright 15, oh my god, it was so good. I just have to tell you how good it is.
Birthright has been on my to-read list for quite a while. I haven't read the first issue of that yet, though.
Oh my god.
And that's an Image title, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is. I read mostly Image, and it's right up there with Saga and my top picks.
Okay.
Like if I lost my job, I would do terrible things to get money to buy that book.
Okay.
Oh my god.
It's so good.
So a wholehearted recommendation from Sabrina.
Right? Yes, I would.
Birthright.
And Birthright is one I've only read like the first issue of when we had it as like I think $1 one, but like it's so like such a great premise. I really liked it. Like I just need to get the trade, just read it all in one sitting.
Okay, I've got to check it out. So, okay, Freddie has to go. In fact, Crystal, a friend of the show, is dragging him away.
I'm terribly sorry.
Okay,
I haven't been on the show in like a couple weeks.
that's right. But you're a part of the Ninja Network as well.
The Nerd Ninja
Oh,
Show.
Nerd Ninja Show. I'm
Ninja.
sorry.
I do work for them as well.
In fact, you're going to have to tell me because on Facebook I asked you for more information about that.
Yes,
So, okay,
we're
we'll talk
currently
about
in the
this
middle of a
later.
show, but yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
and so you guys are going to go do the show.
Yeah, we're gonna do the horror show at 8:30 tonight.
And then the magic show starts at 9:45.
Okay.
Not Magic the Gathering, magic like awesome Houdini sideshow amazingness.
Okay. Again, I'll have to check that out. Our listeners will have to check that out.
You have to check it out.
And then we will talk about, because I want more information about
For
what
sure,
you were
for
asking
sure,
me on
for sure.
Facebook.
Cool.
I also want to leave with the fact that Evil Dead, Ash, and The Revenge of Hitler came out today. So
I actually got
should
to
pick
watch
that up.
Army of Darkness 2 on TV yesterday.
Oh, there you go.
And Hellcats is my pick today, just for you listeners.
There's also
Hellcats
another
4.
pick for someone.
Another Hellcats recommendation.
Hell yeah.
Okay, you
you
guys
guys.
have a fun recording.
Bye.
Okay, so, but no, getting back to Birthright, I have not read that. What is the premise?
right.
I can't remember.
All right, so first issue, you have a father playing ball with his son Mikey, and he throws it a bit too far, and it goes into the woods. And Mikey's like, I got it, Dad! And he runs off, and he doesn't come out. So you have the search party, and when they don't find him, people start suspecting, like, the father killed him. And a year goes by, and the loss of their son has torn the family apart. The parents are divorced. The father has a drinking problem, and life just sucks. And then one day, this guy, bearded, long hair, looks like Conan, comes out claiming to be their missing son. It's like, how can that be? It's only been a year, and you're an adult. But you find out that he claims this, and of course the parents are like, you're a crazy person, that he got taken to another land. Obviously time is a lot different there, because he grew up in the span of a year, our time, in this other world that's being plagued by this villain, and he's destined to be the downfall of this villain. So they've been training him, and he somehow finds his way back to his planet, his I don't know, dimension of origin, and he's definitely got an agenda, but He's very, very secretive. He ends up teaming up with his older brother, which is now way younger than he is. And they have some adventures, but
And who were the creators of that?
I don't remember these things. Google remembers.
Okay, but Google remembers, but you highly recommend it.
It's definitely one of my
One of
favorite.
the really cool things about it is it's a really great take on the whole like Chronicles of Narnia or Wizard of Oz or just anything where you have this kid go off to a magical land and then they come back and it's like 2 minutes after they left or like nothing happened while they were gone. Like actual consequences for this kid being gone affects their family, and it's kind of just a really interesting take on that.
Indeed. So I think it's a really nice fantasy book without being like, because you still have like modern era stuff, but you have like wizards and whatnot. So
I just didn't want you to like have
and big swords.
And big swords.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask, are either of you reading any Aftershock titles? And the reason I'm asking is because it's relatively fresh on my mind. Our regular review show that went up just today was a publisher spotlight on Aftershock Comics. And they have those inaugural 7 titles that have come out already since December. And I didn't know if you guys are reading any Aftershock.
Well, the only one I've been checking out is Insects, which is definitely for mature audiences,
Oh, yeah.
I would say. But it is definitely kind of like just interesting and really beautiful and also kind of disgusting, but still pretty. And I don't know, I haven't been able to keep up too much with it, but I read like the first 3 issues, and it's definitely... It's something. It's also by, I think, the person who does DC Bombshells, if I remember correctly, Marguerite Bennett.
Right, yes.
And I really like her style of writing, and also that she does seem very committed to having women being happy with other women, which is kind of nice. Yeah.
You know, it's interesting that you mentioned this title. My co-host Andy Kunka and I did the Aftershock show, and we were diametrically opposed when it came to Insects. I don't want to say diametrically. It's not that I didn't like it. Of the 7 titles that they've released so far, the 7 series, that's the one I had the most problem with. Not the art. The art is absolutely beautiful.
Oh, definitely.
The art is what drives that comic, as far as I'm concerned. And the erotic scenes, are not bad either. But they're beautifully done.
Yeah, they're
Right.
just like, it's not just like, oh, here's a boob. It's like this very beautiful page laid out where they're doing the thing.
Exactly. And so I really like the art. And, the concept, Bennett's concept of, you mentioned, women happy with one another and not needing a man, I mean, I'm fine with that as well. My problem with Insects, and I've read up to issue number 4, how do I put this? Since it deals with insects, let me just say in a punny way that the story seems full of moth holes, or is moth-eaten, in that there are things that don't seem to make sense to me, or things that aren't explained in the story. And by the 4th issue, it seems to me they should be making more sense than they do. And the way I described it in our discussion on the Publisher Spotlight episode, I feel like I'm on the periphery of trying to grasp what it is that's going on, and there are certain questions that aren't being answered. So, for instance, the 2 women in the series, the protagonists, are they involved before the story begins, or is that first page or so the beginning of their relationship? We don't know. Is the protagonist also an insect person when the story begins, or is this something that happens at the very beginning of the story? It's not clear there. How does the, if we want to call it, reproduction happen? I don't need technical specific answers to this.
I don't know if we'd want the technical
Right, it'd be kind of weird. But in a broader general sense, with a lot of little things, there just seems to me more explanation that is needed in order to fill in some of the gaps. Because when you have 1 or 2 holes or gaps, that's one thing. But when you have a series of them that keep building one upon the other, it's kind of like what we were talking about with art that's inconsistent and uncomfortable perspectives. I'm taken out of the story because I'm asking myself, why is this the case? So...
Yeah, no, I understand that.
But the beautiful art,
Yeah,
beautiful
no,
art.
definitely really pretty.
Yes. But are you, Sabrina, reading any Aftershock?
I am. I'm currently following Replica. Yes.
That's a good one.
I I'm glad someone else likes it too. I've only gotten a couple of my customers that interested, but we don't get that many anyways.
And that's what, Paul Jenkins, right?
That
who's
does
just the
sound
writer,
right.
yeah.
Yeah. But it's fun and definitely worth picking up.
And it's funny as well as I think that's one of the big. I think that's of the 7 titles so far. That's the one that has the most humor. Super Zero has quite a bit as well.
I haven't picked that one up yet.
That's an interesting take on the superhero genre. So basically, you have a young woman. I think she is just out of high school. Her name is Drew. And she wants to be, or maybe she's in high school. I think she's in high school, so I was mistaken there. And she wants to be a superhero. And she is trying to become a superhero through the various means that other individuals have famously become superheroes.
Like getting bit by spiders?
Well, okay, in the very first issue, she tries to hire a homeless guy to mug her parents as they're coming out of a theater. And she feels that after that, then she become a superhero. That doesn't work. And then she asks a friend in the second issue to gather some spiders for her. And Drew's plan is to get beat up at school because no one really likes her. So to get beat up, and then as the ambulance is taking her away, her friend is supposed to slip her this bag of spiders. And so when she gets x-rayed, these spiders will get radiated, and then she'll get bitten. She'll become a superhero. Well, that doesn't work. So far, the first, I think, 3 issues have been a series of these. You know, her attempting to become a superhero and then fails. Another attempt to become a superhero, that fails. I hope that Amanda Connor and Jimmy Palmiotti pretty soon take us away from the premise, because the premise is interesting, but let's give us more character development, because if we have a series in this first narrative arc of attempts to be superheroes and then fails, it becomes a little repetitive. But other than that, I think it's a great series. And they're good writers.
Oh, definitely.
Indeed. I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, one of my favorites of the new Aftershock titles is David Hines' Second Sight.
I can't even remember if I've looked at that one yet.
It's good and creepy.
I have to look for it.
It's David Hines creepy.
What has he done? That name's super familiar. I can't place it.
Okay, if you're talking about creepy, he did Strange Embrace. He's done a number of things, but Strange Embrace is, I think in terms of creator-owned work, probably what he's best known for, at least what I best know him for. Really good stuff. He did an adaptation a couple of years ago of... Oh, what was it? Self-Made Hero published it. The Man Who Couldn't Stop Smiling. I'm sure I'm butchering that title or getting it wrong, but it's something to that effect. And he adapted that into comic form, which is pretty good.
Sounds nice and creepy.
So yeah.
Especially if he's mad, smiling,
Yep.
beating you to death.
and when we reviewed it on the podcast, we did make references to the Joker. So, because I think that they're inherently there. In the adaptation, obviously, not in the original.
Yeah.
But I've been reading a lot. You guys were talking about what you've been reading and enjoying. Over the past month, I've found myself reading more manga than I normally do. I've been reading more over the past year already just because Shay and I have been doing the monthly manga episode. So that keeps me on my manga toes, so to speak.
Yeah.
But lately I've been wanting to read more titles just to get more in the know. And there's one series that I started just the other week called Tokyo Ghoul
I've seen
by
that.
Sui Ishida.
It's very popular. I've not gotten a chance to read it. I just know that there's creepy things going around and people doing things that they probably shouldn't do, and they're like teenagers-ish. But that's my vague knowledge of what's going on.
Yeah, basically the premise is you have, and you're right, the protagonists are, young people. They're living in a setting where there are ghouls. So you have to take that as a given. And every now and again, a human will die at the hands of a ghoul. And so there is an agency specifically created to seek out and destroy or kill the ghouls, because the ghouls are killing humans.
Yeah.
the main protagonist, and again, his name escapes me. I'm trying to think about it, but he's a bit on the intellectual side, kind of keeps to himself. And one day he's with his friend at a cafe, and he notices this beautiful young woman. And the woman comes over and starts talking to him and starts flirting with him, and he can't believe it because he doesn't think he'd have any chance with her. And so she and he go out one evening, and as they're walking, I think it's in some back alley, she reveals her true self. She's a ghoul. And she's lured him so she can eat him, because ghouls, we discover in this title, can only sustain themselves by human flesh, on human flesh. Anything else leaves them nauseated. They have to sustain themselves on human flesh. So she attempts to kill him. And this is not a spoiler. It's the premise that's set up in the first part of the first volume. Yeah. She is killed unexpectedly through certain means, and as she's doing so, she's killed, and then the young protagonist is injured. He's taken to the hospital. He needs an organ transplant. They end up using an organ from the ghoul, the female ghoul that is killed. And so he becomes a ghoul, or at least a half ghoul. So he's half human, half ghoul. So there's this kind of hybrid kind of existence that he lives, and I think that's what propels, or at least the first 3 volumes that I've read. You know, he has a foot in the human world, he has a foot in the ghoul world, and you get to see ghouls for something other than monsters, because he is welcomed in the community of ghouls, or at least a certain community of ghouls, that are compassionate and try to help him, and they're not the monsters that the humans think that they are. And so you get to see how the other half lives, so to speak.
Yeah.
So and that's a really interesting title. That's something that I've enjoyed, and I'm going to go on and read. I think there are 5 volumes that Viz have put out so far, and the 6th comes out in May or June. I'm not certain, but it's definitely something worth reading.
Sounds interesting.
Yeah.
How's the art? Interesting.
Yeah, I think it's good, and I think it's sophisticated. You were asking kind of hesitantly why.
I never read manga, mostly because I really don't like the art styles they typically use in them. But it's an interesting enough story that I maybe would consider it.
Because that's what I wondered if that's what you meant by the way you asked that question. There is a kind of, and I'm being very loose in general and probably unfair with a lot of artists, there is a style of manga that seems to me, for lack of a better word, generic.
Yeah.
And maybe not as sophisticated or as stylized or as unique, let's say, as it could be. I don't think this is the case. Gotcha. I do think that stylistically it's similar to other kinds of manga. I don't know if the art, if Ishida's art is what distinguishes this series as much as the storyline.
Yeah.
But I definitely think it's worth checking out.
Yeah, I'll have to get over my manga fear.
Yeah, definitely get over your manga fear.
I think I can do that. I don't think I can do anime.
Yeah. Well, in fact, they did make Tokyo Ghoul into an anime, and that's one of the reasons why I think a lot of people, as you and Stephanie commented, are interested in that. It's been getting a lot of attention. Well, as we were talking about Tokyo Ghoul, we were joined by Chris.
Hey.
And you have been on the show a number of times.
A couple times, yeah.
I'm glad that you caught us in process.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt that Sabrina might have called yesterday and mentioned it. She called for a different reason. She called because one of my orders came in, but she mentioned it, and I'm like, I will try and be there. So,
okay, and you're here.
Yeah, I made it with, not, I imagine a whole lot of time left, but I'm here. I was sitting here wondering what exactly you guys were talking about, because I get in, you guys are talking, and it's like, art style, comic book. No, it's a manga. Oh, it's Tokyo Ghoul. I've actually heard of that. Yeah. I haven't seen it or read it.
Well, manga is comics.
Yeah, I agree with you there, but a lot of people make the distinction of, oh, it's a different thing. It doesn't count. We're not going to talk about it. I've never understood that distinction, but I do understand that a lot of people make it. Mm-hmm. So, I tend to read both, but I haven't read any recent manga in a while just due to time constraints, unfortunately.
You're right.
And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to pick up Tokyo Ghoul is
Yes.
because
It's pretty cool art style. Actually, kind of dig it.
Tokyo Ghoul art is amazing.
yeah, Sabrina, just for those of you, and you can't see this because we're an audio podcast, but Sabrina's
Nice job,
looking this
Sabrina.
up, Tokyo Ghoul, on her cell phone. So,
But don't
she
take
wanted
our
to see.
word for it. Look it up yourself.
No, it really is. It really is pretty.
Make sure you Google the manga, not the anime, or else you're gonna get confused.
Yes, well. But yeah, the Tokyo Ghoul manga is really, really pretty. It's up there with one of my favorite manga art. It's probably second only to the manga form of Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, which was done by Miyazaki back at the beginning of his career.
So, but yeah, I mean, as I was saying, I wanted to check out Tokyo Ghoul because it is a current, ongoing, recent series, and you know, Shay and I talk about recent titles on our monthly manga show, but it's not often that we choose a popular title that's currently ongoing to discuss, something that may appeal to a wider and maybe a younger audience. Now, we haven't talked about Tokyo Ghoul for the manga series. We might in the future when the 6th volume comes out.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it depends.
We only have the 4th volume. I'm super bummed.
Well, the 5th one came out not too long ago, maybe a month or two ago. Now, this month, on the March manga series, we're going to be looking at 2 new books, actually, from Inio Asano. One is called The Girl on the Shore. That's published by Vertical. And then the other one will be Goodnight Pun Pun, Volume 1 from Viz. And so we thought, I think Girl on the Shore came out in late January. Goodbye Pun Pun comes out this month. But we wanted to save Girl on the Shore to talk alongside Goodnight Pun Pun to make it a Inio Asano show. And I really do enjoy Asano's work. He's someone else, if you're not familiar with, you were talking about style, his is definitely different. He has a style that is notable. In other words, if you knew it and you saw it somewhere else, but you didn't know that Asano did this manga, you'd recognize it as his. He has a specific way of drawing characters that I think really stands out. That while at the same time, I think participates in what some may call kind of a characteristic manga style, but it does something different with it. I think he really does make the art his own.
What else has he done?
He did a series of stories called "What a Wonderful World," and no, this is not the song by Louis Armstrong. But he did a series of stories that was released by Viz a few years ago in 2 volumes. Really good, and those are, I guess, slice of life stories for the most part, and I really like that kind of storytelling, and the stories are linked in such a way that they're similar to a short story cycle. In other words, there are characters in one story that appear in other stories, or the location seems to be similar, or an event or a location in one story appears, maybe even introduces the next story. So I think it's really sophisticated in that way. He's probably best known for a book called Solanin, and I guess I'm pronouncing that correct. It's Solanin. And that's really good. Solanin.
So it might be Nin, it might be Nin. I'm going back on my Japanese pronunciation lessons. The I is generally pronounced more like an E, and the E is pronounced S, so it would probably be something closer to Solanin.
Okay.
But
And the best way of describing this story is, let me see, I guess, a story of Japanese slackers, you could say.
Oh.
Because, you have a group of friends who are just out of school, and they're trying to find direction in their life. Some are kind of slacking it. The protagonist ends up quitting her job at the very beginning of the book, and she's kind of drifting for a while she finds some direction. Her boyfriend has a part-time design job, but he kind of wants to do something with his music, but he doesn't want to take a chance. And so it's dealing with young lives at a crossroads. And so that's really interesting. For me, the best thing that Asano has done is called Nijigahana Holograph. and that came out a few years ago from Fantagraphics. The way that book was described, and I think it's on the back of the book's cover, it's like, I think they call it a David Lynchian type story. I don't know if I would call it David Lynch, but it definitely does have that strange, almost surreal feel to it. Basically, you have an event that happened in the past at a location called Ninjigahara, and you don't know exactly what this event was. It involved a young girl who ended up going into a coma, but you don't know much of the detail at the beginning. Actually, you don't know a lot of the detail of what happened to her by the very end of the story as well.
It's a noodle incident.
But, pardon?
Oh, it's a noodle incident. It's just referenced but never actually referred to as what exactly it was.
Yeah.
But by the time that you get to the end of it, you can't tell what it is because what the readers have put in their heads
Yeah.
is significantly better than anything you'd ever come up with.
I mean, well, there are hints as to what might have happened, but you don't know exactly that was the case or not. But it centers around a community of people, primarily at a school. The young kids, when they were young in the elementary school, when this event happened, their teacher, and then years later when they're adults, still living and being affected by those events at that time. It's one of those books that you're going to have to read 2, 3, 4 times in order to really wrap your brain around it. And that's one of the reasons I think that's probably one of his most sophisticated stories that I've read. Definitely worth checking out.
Ooh, it's published in hardcover.
Yep.
Very nice.
Yep. Fantagraphics. So,
I just looked it up.
yeah.
It looks really good. I'm gonna have to track this one down. 1 volume, 15 chapters. Good enough.
Very good. Yeah, it's a great book. Like I said, it'll kind of freak you out. It's one of those that you have to go back, or I had to go back and reread several pages that I had previously read because I thought, okay, do I understand what just happened? Maybe I missed something. Let me go back. And then I reread them and go, okay, I don't think I missed anything, but I still don't completely understand. But I'm okay with that. I'll just go on with the narrative and see how it plays itself out.
Right. And then you come back and you realize, oh, that's what I missed after something else has been reviewed.
Not even necessarily. No, it's one of those that it's different from what I was talking about earlier with insects, and where I was talking about the holes in the story. Now, this may not be a fair comparison because we only have 4 issues of that so far. So maybe those holes will be filled. I don't think that this story is defined by its gaps as much it is by its intentional ambiguity.
Okay.
And I tend to like open-ended, ambiguous narratives. So
So do I. Although they're not as popular in the West as they are in the East, but that's what makes some of the best ambiguous narratives come from the East in Japan and things like that.
So, Chris, we were talking about, before you arrived, what we have been reading that we particularly like. What have you been reading that really stands out?
Way to put me on the spot there, man. What have I been reading?
Well, you came here intentionally to talk on the podcast.
Yeah, no,
Didn't you plan
Pick
on...
up some comic books.
Or you came to pick up comic books?
I came to pick up some comic books was the thing, and I also came to stop by and say hi, but off the top of my head, I don't really know what I've been reading because I've been so busy.
Okay, what are you going to pick up to read then?
What came out this week that was in my box? I know you gave me a list yesterday.
Are you picking up Angela Queen?
Yes, I'm picking up Angela, Queen of Hell. Oh my god, I love that comic so much. I'm sorry.
Angela,
you
Queen of
remember.
Hell. I am not familiar with that.
It's one of the Marvel titles. Angela somehow ends up displacing Hel as ruler of Hel, the Norse goddess Hel, Loki's daughter, as the ruler of Niflheim / Hel / whatever you want to call it, and it follows her. I'm like I said, I've been so busy. I'm behind on reading it, but I've been picking it up with regularity. I've only read the first 3 issues, even though they're on issue 6.
I think there's only one more.
Oh.
Oh, are they ending it?
Yeah, that and Howling Commandos of S.H.I.E.L.D. just got announced that there'll only be 7 issues.
Okay, that's unfortunate because those are 2 actual really good ones. I would have thought they would have kept those running longer.
Yeah, I think it's just depending on how they've been received.
Yeah, I guess that's unfortunate because Angela, Queen of Hell is
Yeah, and that's a character with a really interesting, weird history
Yeah.
legal-wise, because she was a Spawn character written by Neil Gaiman, but then Neil Gaiman was like, hey, I own this character, and the creator of Spawn was like, no, you don't, and then basically it became a huge court case for years and years and years, and eventually Neil Gaiman, I think, either he made a deal or he just gave it to Marvel, because like by the time he won it, it's like what am I going to do with this one comic character of which I can't even put her in her own universe because I don't own that. So it's just very weird. And then basically gave it to Marvel, and then she became Loki and Thor's unknown sister, pretty much. And now she's part of the Norse family.
Yep, and she's taken over Hell, and she's got her girlfriend that she hangs out with. It's great. I really appreciate the fact that they did that, by the way. Like, most comics, when you've got, same-sex relationships, they're kind of off to the side, or, no hugging, no kissing, and then Angela and Sarah make out like every other episode. Every other issue. It's great.
Now that you mention Hell, that reminds me of something. Has anybody been watching the Lucifer series?
Oh my god, I want to see it so bad. My mom's like, no, you cannot see it. You cannot see it. And I'm like, Mom, I'm 23 freaking years old and I don't live with you anymore. I'm watching this series.
Why doesn't she want you to? Because it deals with Lucifer?
It glorifies Satan. She's one of those people.
That's old.
It doesn't. Have you seen it, Sabrina?
I do not have cable. I have to
Hulu.
wait for things. Oh, it's on Hulu?
It's on Hulu. At least last I checked it was.
I usually avoid Hulu. I just wait for Netflix. So please put it on Netflix.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I mean, they have to finish out the series. Or
Yeah.
season.
Besides, I prefer binge watching anyways.
This is true.
Well, okay, the reason I'm asking if anyone else has seen Lucifer, because I'm curious if your reaction is the same as mine. I saw the first 3 episodes, and I haven't seen anything beyond that for this reason. It's repetitive. And when I saw the pilot, I had wondered if this was going to be the case. Basically, what you have is something like a police procedural with Lucifer.
Right.
And if you're looking for the Lucifer that Mike Carey made popular, he originally began, speaking of Neil Gaiman, in Gaiman's Sandman, and then he had that series of his own, which I absolutely love. I mean, it's a phenomenal series. And then we have the new Lucifer series that I thought has gotten off to a really good start. The TV show, though, is different. So basically what you have is the same basic setup. You have Lucifer, who has his own bar in L.A., and who, got away from Hell, and he
Never go drinking in Los Angeles.
And so, he is there hiding out, although not really hiding, in L.A., but in the series, he has become involved with a police detective, and he helps her out on a number of cases. Now, when he helped her out on a case in the pilot episode, I had wondered, is this going to be what the series is about, with every new episode
Being a different crime.
kind of like Law and Order with Lucifer.
We have enough of those.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's why I was hoping that wasn't going to be the case. Then I saw the second episode, that's what happened. I saw the third episode, that's what happened. So I'm not watching.
Well, as somebody who hasn't read Sandman or the new Lucifer, although I'm getting to them, I promise, that you mentioned earlier, I'm going to be going into it with no preconceived biases. So I will give you my impression next time I see you, because I do want to watch it.
The TV show?
Yeah, the TV show, yeah. But my personal stance on any TV show that's like that is sort of the police procedural, where there's a different crime each episode, is that those shows are always powered not by the narrative of the crime, but by the narrative that goes around the crime. So like the first 5 minutes, some interspaced in between, and then towards the end, the last 5 to 10 minutes, and what's going on there. So that's where I'm going to be looking, probably.
Yeah, don't scratch the table, because I hear it on the
Sorry.
mic. That's okay.
Sorry.
And I would be okay with that, but with Lucifer, I mean, it is the crime that really has been driving each episode, at least the first 3 that I've seen. Now, Stephanie, have you seen it?
I saw the pilot, and I thought like parts of it were really interesting, but it really, I don't know, it needs to find what it wants to be, like what makes it different than every other police procedural out there, which, I mean, sure, it's like the devil, but the devil is human. It's not like he's a big red demon who's also solving crime, which would definitely set it apart from everything else. But yeah.
I was hoping when they announced this TV series that this would be something somewhat similar to Constantine. And I liked Constantine. Too bad it wasn't picked up for a second season. Yeah. But I liked what they did.
Seems like all the best shows aren't.
But they just plugged this into a procedural format, and that's what we have.
Well, it's
so
kind of like...
it seems a little lazy to me.
Yeah, like, I know a lot of people were very upset with how they did iZombie, which, I mean, as the show, it's its own thing. I know people that like the show, but as far as, like, people who really wanted to see something very different that was just like the comic book, it's not the same thing at all.
Yeah, and you're now that you mention that is something that also has that same kind of procedural feel to it. I think I've seen maybe 2-3 episodes of iZombie. I thought it was okay, but I didn't feel as let down with that as I did with Lucifer. I guess because I had higher expectations going into Lucifer.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
It might just be something that it takes them a couple of episodes to find their footing. I mean, some of my favorite shows took a while. One of my favorite shows, well, not my favorite, but one of the shows I really, really liked, Fringe, took a whole season.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like Star Trek. The first season is always really awkward for all the Star Treks, but who knows?
Yeah, at this point, since it seems to have sort of missed its opening, it's not going to be so much how it lands as how it rebounds and picks itself back up.
Right. But the difference with the Lucifer TV series from the examples that you guys gave, the original Star Trek and with Fringe, is that Fringe and Star Trek were not working from previous narratives. In other words, they didn't have that baggage. Now, so that's why I'm interested in someone who does not know the Lucifer comic, such as you, coming to that show cold. Do you get out of it the same thing that I get out of it, or are you annoyed or not annoyed by the things that I am?
I'll let you know.
Well,
Okay.
as someone, I never actually have read the Lucifer comics, and I mean, as far as I feel like it needs to find what it wants to be exactly. Like there is the whole stuff with him being the devil, which is very interesting, but you spend most of the time on the crime and doing that. So it's like, I don't know, I feel it needs to find what exactly it wants to focus on.
Yeah, there was more devil and demon stuff in the Constantine series from last year than there is in this year's Lucifer. So
It seems like one of those things that you would want to use pretty heavily, to be completely honest with you, is just all the supernatural things all over the place, and then occasionally overthinking some things, and it's not supernatural, but it looks like it is, or things like that.
I would think that would draw an audience, but maybe I'm wrong.
I would want the supernatural.
You would not
I
want?
would.
Oh, you would.
I
Yes.
would definitely want the supernatural. I mean, they might be staying away from it because then you start getting into Judeo-Christian lore and start offending some people who are really religious, but that shouldn't dissuade a show.
Oh, let them be offended. Let them be
Yeah.
offended, then go vote for Donald Trump, you know?
But no, to be fair, that has not stopped Supernatural, which is on its 12th or 13th season now.
It's on a season number that is significantly too high.
Yeah, too high.
Yeah. No, I agree. It shouldn't dissuade a TV series, but there are some people who will let it dissuade a TV series. And it's unfortunate, but it does happen.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope the producers of Lucifer are listening to this podcast, and they will
Guys.
change their ways with maybe the second season of Lucifer, assuming that it does get a second season.
Yeah.
But yeah, we've been talking for quite a while, over an hour now, about the things that we're reading and watching, and I thank you guys for joining us. Sabrina, Stephanie, and then Chris joining in, and we also want to thank Freddie, who was here for a while.
Yeah, I need to talk to him
So
too.
we're on location once again at Collected Comics and Games. It's at Plano, Texas, 3100 Independence Parkway. So if you're in the area in Plano, definitely come by and check them out. I don't know of a friendlier crew
And then
who works
come-
at a comic shop.
Come by
thank you.
Birthright.
And then come by Birthright.
I'll gab your ear off.
There's really not a better place than this. There's
Yeah.
a couple other comic stores around here. I don't go to them. There's one that I am not going to name that I consider to be incredibly rude, and I try and
Oh,
avoid
we
them.
probably named that before you got here.
I'm not going to do it just in case.
Yeah.
But
You're
this
very
is
thoughtful.
this is the place that you want to go to if you want comics in Plano, Allen, or Richardson.
Exactly. Definitely the place to come. Again, that's 3100 Independence Parkway, Collected Comics and Games. Also, as we mentioned at the top of the show, this episode is sponsored by Just Coffee Co-op. If you like great free trade, organically grown, and socially responsible coffee, tea, and chocolate, it's the place to go. Go to justcoffee.coop, and upon checkout, use our coupon code COMICS. That'll give you 10% off of your order. And remember, shipping is free. That's Just Coffee Co-op, a great place to get caffeinated. And after you do get your coffee there and your comics at Collected Comics and Games, then get in touch with us and let us know what you think about our on-location episodes. If you go to our website, comicsalternative.com, you can see that. You can contact us via SpeakPipe. Leave us a voice message that way. It's simple and easy to use. Or give us a call on the phone if you like the old-fashioned means of communication. Our phone number is on that website. And I say that because I can't remember it off the top of my head. Every single week I mention this, and it's escaping me right now. But just go to comicsalternative.com and you'll find our phone
You know what?
number.
Next time you do a live one, I'll memorize your number, and I'll make sure that when you're here and you can't remember it again, I'll have it for you.
And you can also email us. We're 2guys@comicsalternative.com, or you can contact me directly. I'm Derek at comicsalternative.com. You can also find us all over social media, such as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Google+, YouTube. We're just all over the place. So many ways of getting in touch with us. You can subscribe to the podcast through iTunes. You can also stream us on Stitcher. You can also find us on TuneIn. But as always, you can find every single one of our episodes, as well as the reviews and the comics-related commentary that we post on our blog, which is at our website, comicsalternative.com. So please let us hear from you. And guys, thank you once again for a fun time here at Collected.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Indeed.